lying low.
Look, change of plans. We have to grab what we can carry and get out of here now.
What? Why?
Because the high priest is nuts.
This is unacceptable.
Yeah, like he said.
The gods should not be playing ball like this.
Well, exactly.
This is how the gods should play ball.
But don't blame me.
I blame you. What is the object of this game, pray tell?
Gotta knock the ball through the hoop.
What hoop?
That hoop.
That's impossible. We're gonna lose.
Gods don't lose.
My lords, Chief Tannerbuck's warriors are the finest ball players in the city. 15 mere mortals
Against 2 gods.
I realize it's a bit uneven, but I do hope they'll challenge you enough to make the game interesting. Play ball! Crush them into the dust. Enjoy. My lords, were you not supposed to put the ball into play?
Oh! Huh. Well, no. We were merely demonstrating the traditional the first avoidance maneuver.
Ah. I've never heard of such a thing.
Excuse me. Who invented this game?
What? The gods! Of course.
I'm warning you, don't push your luck with this guy.
But Tulio, we're the gods.
Tulio! The hit!
This is impossible.
Excuse me.
That was a foul!
New ball! How long does this go on, anyway?
The game is over when the shadow touches this line.
We need a miracle. No, we need to cheat.
Who's the guy?
You the guy. You know you the guy.
It's right here with me!
Everything he does seems to come out right. Once I went to hear them play at a club outside of town. I was so the sound this cat put down. When I saw this short fat guy stretch a man between his toes.
What you talking about?
Hey,
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about?
Prepare yourself for the rubber band. Another one. You never heard another one. Like the rubber band. Another one. Another one. What?
If the above is true, then I must say this. I know how the ancient Olmecs means rubber, or if the rubber tree moved large stones, massive stone heads, and why they and the mines always had causeways in their cities. It has to do with the rubber balls that were developed long ago in Mexico when latex was discovered and wrapped around perfect river rocks. Recently, a large find in Mexico stated that Olmec artifacts were discovered, and then under the discovery they stated that there were many rubber balls found buried in the ground for their ball game. I am sorry, but every kid in my neighborhood remembers putting their sports balls under a board or in a box and moving things around using the ball-bearing means of motivation, a methodology to move heavy objects or even themselves. It was a no-brainer in my youth. I thought of this in a dream some time back, but the new find supported my contention. See Archaeology magazine on Olmecs 2007. I was the first to say something about this on the net several years ago, and I darn sure better get credit for it. www.enigmany.com, ad name Google AdSense 468 times 60 banner blue rubber balls for moving stones. I will expand on this later at my site and others. They used the hard rubber balls to move tons of stones all over Mexico. That is why they did not need the wheel. They had the better means, allowing more control. Where the rubber meets the road. Was an old Firestone TV ad in my day. My dad had a Firestone store in my youth, and that is where I began to study archaeology and anthropology. I did a report in high school on the Olmecs and Maya ball games using latex rubber. This realization is a very important breakthrough in thinking. They used rubber balls and wooden crates on top to move everything around ancient Mexico from the Olmecs time period onto today. Utilizing hard rubber balls and 3 guys or more, one can move a mountain. All you need are about 20 to 30 rubber balls and a pitcher, feeder, and a mover or pusher to keep the load moving in the right direction on a smooth surface causeway. Then came the other inventions. The ancients loved the rubber ball so much, they invented a game that flourished all over Mexico. It became their favorite pastime other than work. Moving the rubber ball around in the most expedient way possible saved time and work, and it became a lot of fun too, even on the job. Ron O'Cook.
Laura Fioy is a senior conservator at the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. She studies the rubber balls created by ancient Mexicans.
Mesoamerican people have been using rubber balls since 1600 BC, so from the early formative period until today. We know that a lot of rubber balls were sent to Mexico City during the Aztec time. More than 1,600 balls were sent to Mexico twice a year, but we only have 50 archaeological balls.
Ancient rubber balls are extremely rare because natural rubber is very sensitive to environmental conditions. It decays quickly if exposed to light or left in soil.
In the Mayan area, the only ones that we have recovered is the balls that were thrown to the cenote. So they are offering balls and they are very small.
Rubber balls are still being made in Mexico today, created from an ancient recipe used for several centuries, a mixture of sap from the rubber tree and other native plants. And they're made for the same centuries-old purpose too, playing games.
This is an ulama ball that comes from Sinaloa. The mestizos from Sinaloa play a special kind of ball game. It's a solid rubber ball. It's heavy. It's more than 4 kilos weight.
When Spanish explorers first saw these rubber balls in action, they were amazed. These bouncing balls were unlike anything they'd ever seen.
Because in Europe they used balls made of leather and cloth or tissue that didn't bounce a lot, and they thought they were alive. they have life of their own.
The Olmec civilization, which was around from 1200 BCE to 400 BCE. The geography and location of the Olmecs. They had hot and humid lowlands along with hot and swampy jungles. They lived in villages around the area of San Lorenzo, and the entire colony was centered around the southern Gulf Coast of Mexico. The main part of the colony was surrounded by many bays, the Gulf Coast of Mexico, swampy lowland areas, and many mountains. They had the Coatzacoalcos River system going straight through the middle of the area, and there was some volcanic activity. The Olmecs had a wide array of weapons, starting here in this picture with the Machuahilu, and then here with the Kuahili. They had many different spears, axes, and daggers, all with different names. Very hard to pronounce. They had the blowgun, the sling, and what we would know now as the bow and arrow. Most of the weapons and tools that they had were used more for combat and fighting purposes, since they looked at animals to be more sacred, but we'll get into that with religion. Speciality of the Olmecs. The Olmecs built many large, massive structures, such as the pyramids, as well as built many paved roads that they used for trade. They built the large structures, such as pyramids, so that they could have some place for the entire colony and village to assemble and praise the gods and goddesses that they worshipped. They used the roads for different trades with different native groups, and they had many water systems that consisted of buried networks of stone troughs. For the more of the social class aspect, common people lived in villages. Most of them were known as peasants. They'd visit the cities on market days and festival days. There were also people known as nobles who would tie boards to their children's head. They wanted to create skulls. They thought these types of skulls were very beautiful. Then some of the other people, there were governors who were also priests and warriors, some artisans, and then again the peasants who would work on the land, build public works, and fought as soldiers during the wars. The Olmecs' culture through art and writing. The Olmecs expressed much of their culture through their art and their writing. They used this with most of their monumental art, which was their statues, their large colossal heads, and they also had small jade carvings and jewelry. Much of their carvings were made by that of their writing and of some of the pictures that they had, because much of their religion consisted of praising and worshipping animals. Many of their large-scale colossal heads and statues were used to symbolize important and religious figures of their culture. Other further religious info. Olmec priests wore jaguar skins, red robes, feathers, and headdresses. They filed their teeth and put semi-precious stones in them. Cities also acted as religious centers, and the temples had houses for the priests and the artists. There is also evidence that the Olmec practiced human sacrifice, which also included them sacrificing the infants. There were many gods, such as the corn god and the rain god, and the jaguar god was that of the underworld. They also believed in the afterlife. Many of their gods were based around animals as well. The Olmecs were very clever mathematicians and astronomers who made very accurate calendars. The calendar that they used for their record system was the long count date calendar. It's the second oldest long count date yet ever discovered. They also may have been known to have come up with the concept of zero. The Olmecs also may have been the first civilization in the Western Hemisphere to develop a writing system. Their writing system was composed of many different symbols that were mainly animals. This type of hieroglyphics is known as Epi-Olmec. Technology of the Olmecs. The Olmecs had many inventions and technological advances that influenced the surrounding civilizations. They created a hydraulic system, which is a machine that is operated by the force offered or the pressure given out when a liquid is forced through a small opening or tube.
What?
They also made canals that served as giant waterways for trade, and they made a form of game that had the use of a rubber ball. The Olmecs economy was mainly based around trade and agriculture, so they had many crops, and greenstone was very, very popular in their economy.
The Olmecs were the first true Mesoamerican civilization. There were small villages and groups of people in the area in which the Olmec developed, but these societies are referred to as pre-Olmec. The Olmecs were a full-fledged civilization because they were more organized and socially advanced than their predecessors. There are differing opinions regarding the Olmec timeline. Some say the start was around 1500 BC, but the more popular timeline puts the beginning of the Olmec at roughly 1200 BC and the decline of the culture sometime near 400 BC. There are many theories about the downfall of the Olmec civilization, such as catastrophic climate change, illness, volcanism, and overpopulation. The most recognizable artifacts created by the Olmecs are 17 colossal basalt heads that have been discovered across 4 different sites. The Olmec gathered basalt from boulders located in the Sierra de los Texlas. These stones were very large and it is unknown how they moved them to their final resting places. The heads were shaped with percussion, hammerstones, and abrasives. The first archaeological investigations of the Olmecs didn't begin until more than 75 years after the initial discovery of a colossal head. One of the first, and most famous, researchers to study the Olmec was Matthew Stirling. The Olmecs are unique for many reasons. It appears the Olmec culture developed alone. Most cultures develop with outside influences by engaging in activities such as trade and immigration. Developing independently is rare, and when it happens the culture is known as pristine. The Olmec had several firsts in the Americas. They developed the first monumental architecture and first signs of city planning. They were the first known people to use a writing system in the Americas. Another first was the use of chocolate, which was their preferred drink. The name Olmec means rubber people. It's how the Aztec tribes describe the Olmecs and makes sense, as they are the best candidates for inventing the first ball games. The first major city of the Olmec civilization was San Lorenzo, with a population of at least 15,000. It had a very elaborate drainage system that may have helped its success. The Olmecs achieved this feat by using carved stone pipes with lids. San Lorenzo had vast influence and political power in Mesoamerica. 10 amazing colossal heads were discovered there. The colossal heads represented rulers or elites. They differ from one another in facial characteristics and size. Each was also carefully carved with a distinctive headdress. The largest head at the San Lorenzo is 9.3 feet, 2.8 meters, high, 6.9 feet, 2.1 meters, wide, and weighs about 25.3 tons. The San Lorenzo colossal heads were at the center of the site and formed 2 lines oriented north-south. La Venta came into prominence around 900 BC. It had thousands of inhabitants and was about 200 hectares, though the power and influence of the city spread much further. Many people there had jobs such in farming, fishing, and moving stone blocks from distant quarries. Traders also ventured into the distant valleys of Mexico and beyond, bringing back cacao, bright feathers, obsidian, and jadeite. Others were members of the priesthood and the elite or ruling class. La Venta was built on top of a ridge along the Palma River. The royal compound existed at the very top. 4 colossal heads were found at La Venta and 3 of the 4 were oriented in a line east-west. The placement of these monuments at both La Venta and San Lorenzo is very intriguing. Trasapos is the 3rd major city. In 1862, José Melgar discovered the first Olmec colossal head there. This led to the first archaeological explorations in the area 5 years later. The city is unique because it may have been inhabited for more than 2,000 consecutive years. It also shows artistic influences from several other groups. La Cabada was not an inhabited city, it was a basalt site located near the Sierra de los Texlas. An offering of an obsidian knife was found buried with the colossal head found there. The knife was pointed north toward Monument Q's head. The head at Lakabata was discovered in 1970 and is the largest found so far. It is the only Olmec head discovered with closed eyes. Olmec religion spurs the interest and debates of many scholars. Some regard the Olmec religious hierarchy as complex, while others call it simplistic compared to the Maya and Aztec pantheons. I view it as both complex and simplistic. Complex because it showed ingenuity in rituals and beliefs set in place with no major outside influence, but simplistic when compared with the Maya and Aztec pantheons. The Maya worshipped over 250 deities and the Aztec had more than 1,000 gods. Unfortunately, the identities of the Olmec gods have been lost to time. Because the Olmec language has yet to be deciphered, the only way to gain insight regarding their beliefs is by studying the images and symbols left behind on carvings and other artifacts. Information on who they worshipped and how they did so may change drastically in the future. But it appears the Olmec deities did not show gender, unlike the Aztec and Maya cultures that they parented. Shamanism was a central part of Olmec religion and images of shamans transforming is often depicted in their art. Shamans are shown performing acrobatics, sometimes with war-jaguar attributes. It seems that the Olmec thought very highly of jaguars and admired their strength, stealth, and prowess. One of the highest states of being you could achieve would be the ability to become one with a powerful jaguar. Therefore, shamans were very important people in Olmec religion.